Welcome to the Wanna Grab Coffee podcast. In today's episode, Igor, Charles, and I discuss the concept of the talent stack and how you can use it as a guide for long-term career growth. Whether you're trying to get unstuck in your career and don't know where to go next, aiming towards that next big promotion, or looking to add a little bit of flavor to your personal and professional life, the talent stack can keep you focused on your long-term career goals while providing clarity on what to focus on today. Thanks for joining us, and don't forget to subscribe and drop us a line if you enjoyed the episode. Have a good one. What's up, guys?
Hey, what's going on, Robert?
Hey, so have you ever had a time in your career where it wasn't really obvious what you should be focusing on today, this week, next month in order to reach your long-term career goals? I frequently get asked by our junior folks, hey, what should I focus on next? What skills should I develop? What programming language should I learn? And the short answer is that it doesn't really matter, just as long as you're building some skill and improving in some area over time. And that's what I really introduced them to the idea of the talent stack. And Scott Adams, the creator of Dilbert, coined the term. And so for Scott Adams, he's really funny, he's really good at art, and he has some business acumen. And he packages those things up into a unique combination that creates Dilbert. And so we've been talking about this idea of the talent stack for a while now. And so definitely wanted to bring that up today and really talk about how people can reach their career goals by building this unique combination of skills over time. And the cool thing about this is it doesn't really matter if you're building hard skills, soft skills, something off the wall. A lot of times those will add flavor to your talent stack and make you even more unique. And so that's really what I wanted to talk to you guys about today. See if there's a way we could help people unlock the next level of career growth for them. And I know since we've been talking about this for a while, Charles, I wanted to get your thoughts on how the concept of a talent stack can help you focus longer term on your career while still keeping the present in mind.
Yeah. Well, I've certainly been in that situation before that you described where, I have these aspirations in my career that I know will take 10, 20, 30 years to accomplish. And with such kind of longer term goals, it could be really hard to say, okay, from where I am right now in terms of my abilities, but also, the type of work that I do, like how do I get from here to there? And I really like the talent stack as kind of guideposts along the way in terms of a career journey for a couple of reasons. I think the first one is that it is something that you can control, right? It is something that you can reflect upon and you can decide. It's like, hey, these are these combinations of skills and talents that I want to focus on right now. And those are tangible. It's something that I can do, starting right now, tomorrow. I think the challenge, though, is that it may be hard at first to see how those talents can contribute to long-term career, growth and accomplishing those goals. But that, the whole point is that this is like a practice, right? It's like you don't just identify like artistic ability and business acumen and creativity, and then all of a sudden you've got Dilbert. It's like, no, Scott Adams probably worked quite a bit to identify those talents and then every single day made it his craft and mission to put those into practice. And that's why I think this is a good concept for long-term career goals and things like that, is because there's discipline that comes along with identifying what your kind of unique combination of talents and skills are. So yeah. I think that's how it helps from a long-term standpoint. It gives us a little bit of clarity on what are the few important things that we can focus on now that if we apply every single day, you can start to see material results.
What's on deck for you right now, Charles, for your talent stack?
Writing. Yes. Writing, which is, just for a while, years, I've thought that I'm just not that good at writing. Like I've had this.
Why did you feel that way?
Well, I think it's because
Is that like feedback you received? Like you would do some writing and then somebody would say, "Hey, Charles, can you work on this a little bit more?"
no, it was nothing external. It was all internal. Like in my mind, whenever I sat down to write something, whether it's a presentation or I don't know, an email or something like that, it was just really, really hard for me to put words on paper. And it wasn't until recently, probably maybe a couple months ago, that I realized like, hey, this is a skill. Right? This is a skill that I can learn and get better at. And I had to really get over myself. And I took a Coursera course for free. I just audited a course on Coursera around business writing and really basic stuff. But if you apply it every single day, it can really make a difference. So that's what I'm focusing on right now.
Yeah, I was going to ask on that. You're focusing on writing. You want to be a better writer. You took a class on business writing. I'm assuming that was the focus, right? Like you wanted to apply your enhanced writing skills to your job. So this was not a hobby. This is professional development.
Yes.
Did you look at any other mechanism for improving? Like, did you look at writing fiction or writing comics or something like that as a way to spur the ability to create a creative, compelling narrative, even in a business setting?
I did. And there are a few courses out there that would fit that. I looked at creative writing in particular. The reason why I picked this one, it's a specialization. So if you don't know anything about Coursera, there are bundles of courses that you can take that are related. And what I liked about this is that it was 3 different courses. One on business writing, essentially how do you write a memo? To be honest, I've never written a memo in my life, but it's just about the written word. The second course was actually on graphic design, and the third was on public speaking. And so what I actually liked was that these 3 different professors identified these core principles of effective communication that span the written word, graphic design, and public presentation or presentation skills, public speaking. And so even though I did it to focus on my writing, I'm really excited about the graphic design piece because I would tell you I don't think I'm a good designer at all. I wouldn't say that I know anything about design really. So it is a little broader than just writing. So I like that.
Robert, what's on deck for you?
So for me, it's got to be this idea of relationship building in a virtual setting. So things that are not tended to decay. And I can, as an extrovert, and I feel this a little bit more acutely than others, but I can just feel what I felt was a pretty robust series of relationships heading into the COVID lockdown. They're decaying at a rate that for me is like I can viscerally feel it, right? And where on a given week where I may bounce back and forth between 1-2 client sites, the office, grabbing coffee with you guys. If I had some kind of quantitative measure of positive relationship experiences, just generally speaking, that number might be like an 80 on a given week, and now it's like an 8. Like it's just really, really difficult to cultivate relationships, and I think part of that is a stylistic preference on my side, but I need to apply a lot more intentionality to really a core component of being able to be effective at our level is you get results through the relationships you have, right? I can do virtually nothing on my own now. Like I need a concerted mobilized collective effort of a team to accomplish anything. And that's just, I can feel it decaying. So I'm working on a few things around reminders. Charles, I took your advice the other day to heart and starting to send people handwritten thank you notes and just really looking to put in intentional, on purpose, asynchronous, positive relationship experiences, right? You're kind of limited to the virtual coffees and meetings, and people are fatigued with being on camera and things like that. And so there's sort of a limit, a ceiling on what you can accomplish there. So I'm trying to figure out how to asynchronously improve relationships, how to track it, which is not something that I'm typically wired or inclined to do, to make sure in the same way, if I'm trying to lose 10 pounds, I'm tracking my calories, I'm tracking my workouts, I'm seeing the progress go up, looking at really the intentionality behind the core behind that relationship building idea that comes much more naturally to me in person. What about you, Igor?
Yeah, for me, I think I would call it account management, but it's something a little bit more specific than that. And it's how do you align the activities of a disparate set of teams to similar goals. And it's quite complicated and difficult. And right now, we're doing that through OKRs, but there's a steep learning curve there for me, and then also the account team. And so that aspect of getting your teams to align behind goals and making forward progress. I don't know if that's a traditional stack that you'd put into your talent stack, but it is a practice, I would say. Like once you've done it, you understand the mechanics, you have experience of how your teams have reacted to like an OKR system. You know how to create momentum, how to help them. And I've been learning a lot, but I think there's a mountain still left for me to learn on that side. So I'm looking forward to that over the next, I would say, 6 to 12 months is my time horizon for getting that skill dialed in for myself.
Yeah. Well, one thing that's definitely on your talent stack is the ability to ask really good questions at the exact right time. So definitely something that I've always appreciated about working with you, for sure.
Thanks.
Yeah, sure. So while we're on this note, what are your thoughts, Igor, on how this idea of the talent stack, thinking about your career more intentionally around the skills that you're building, what's your opinion on how that could lead to broader life satisfaction, happiness, that kind of thing?
Yeah, there's this concept of ikigai, right? So it's this Japanese concept, and it's like a strange Venn diagram. Venn diagrams usually have 2 circles, and then whatever's in the middle, like that's the good thing. The ikigai has like 4 circles. Each of them obviously, interconnect with another circle, and then they all interconnect to make the middle circle. And it's the intersection of these like 4 components. And it's, what do you love to do? What are you good at doing? Those aren't always the same. What can you be paid for? And what does the world need? And I like to think that, your talent stack could probably follow some of these things, right? You don't always have to build your talent stack in what you can be paid for. For example, the talent stack that I'm developing right now, around account management and aligning teams, it's really pretty squarely in the what can you be paid for bucket, right? Like that's not something that, you can argue that's something that the world needs, but usually it's a corporate organizational need, right? And it's something that's paid for, and that's what I'm developing. But sometimes I develop my artistic skills because I love them. And I may not be good at them yet, but as I develop them, those artistic skills can then translate into helping me become better at business communication, right? Because Charles, you mentioned that one of the course components is like graphic design, right? And so over time, probably every stack that I develop has one of these or two of these, or sometimes three of these as a component into it. But over time, as you build up a diversity, as you build a diversity in your talent stack, you get to a point where you can employ these things towards your ikigai. And I think that's sort of the connection there. I think there's, I'm on vacation now, so I'm taking a little break. And one of my goals during the break is learning how to DJ. Might sound like a very strange sort of thing to want to learn, but I've wanted to learn that since I was 13 or 14 years old. And I can also think of that as my talent stack. And at some point, it's going to come in handy. As I learn more about DJing, because I really have no idea what DJing was before I started. Now I'm on like YouTube, I'm watching, all these videos and reading the crowd and playing the right song at the right time, like understanding people's energy levels and then introducing things into the system at the right energy level to make movements towards like momentum up or momentum down. That is the basic skill of the DJ. And that's abstractly a very useful skill for somebody in business, right? You're in a meeting, you're reading the energy of the room. That's, sort of the cumulative energy of the people in that room, and getting good at acutely reading that and then being able to respond in the right way. What can I introduce? Maybe it's a good question, right? Maybe it's a little bit of forced silence. Maybe it's a provocative statement. Maybe it's agreeing with somebody. That skill. And I think abstractly you can apply a lot of these skills, and especially ones that's about sort of reading humans. As a bedroom DJ, that's maybe a little bit harder, but I can sort of read my mood, and that's what I'm working towards. So even, what you would probably think is a pretty frivolous sort of thing to learn might really turn out to be pretty useful for you in the right context if you let it be.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I think about hobbies as a first-class citizen in this framework, right? And so one thing that I picked up a couple of years ago is golf, and just like started out playing with my father-in-law and my brother-in-law, and we're out having fun, and I'm doing horribly, but it's a good time. You're outside. You find yourself in conversations that normally you wouldn't have at your house or something like that, right? So I definitely caught the bug early. And so then I was asked the natural question, well, how do you get better at golf? And that's like a huge rabbit hole. And there's all of this like in the clubs and the type of club heads and the length of the club and what kind of ball you use. And there's all these, like, it's an infinite number of possibilities and dimensions to dig into. And in pursuit of that, like you're still building this level of analytics and the idea that you're learning a new skill, you're trying something hard, you're measuring improvement, you're learning how to get better at something, fighting through it in a way that's unique to you, I think is a really interesting lens to put on this, because one, it does really focus on the well-being and happiness, right? And golf, there's a pretty easy analog into business anyway. But second, this idea of connecting. We talked about relationships earlier, connecting passions, right, on golf, or really probably won't have much to do with my profession, but the idea around teaching, let's say like my daughter came out and started playing with me as well. She's 7. It's not exactly like, I don't know how to even play golf barely. So to teach it is something else as well. But, we're out there having fun. It teaches me how to connect with my daughter more. I can kind of observe her in a physical element. We're riding in the cart together. And so that in my talent stack, I very much want being a world-class father to be in my talent stack. And I think through these connections that we don't always perceive, playing golf it doesn't help me be a better father. It creates an environment and a tool that I can apply towards being a father. Shared interest with my kid, time alone on the golf course, that kind of thing. And so it's really interesting as we start to unravel this idea of the talent stack. It's a pretty nuanced thing, right? And now I have it forever. And as you build these ideas and concepts, you add flavor to who you are and what you bring to your personal and professional life. And that's kind of maybe one main point I wanted to make is, it's not about just hard skills, just business skills. It's much broader than that. And so maybe we can take a minute, and Charles, you could start off by what's like one area of your talent stack that you're good at that brings that flavor into work, that's not a hard skill like a programming language or writing or public speaking, graphic design, things like that.
Yeah. What comes to mind is this is probably a few years ago when I really, I don't even know how I got onto this, but it's storytelling. Actually, it's effectively telling stories. I remember there was a podcast that I was listening to, and this person posed a really interesting question. And it was based off of the fact that they found like ancient human remains. They originated from maybe Madagascar, off the coast of Africa. They found fossil records of this group of ancient humans in Australia. So can you imagine like these ancient humans in Madagascar also being found in Australia? And this person poses like, how do you think, those humans got from Madagascar to Australia? It's because somebody told a freaking compelling story. Somebody on Madagascar, maybe it's a, elder in the tribe or something, said, we have to sail across this body of water that we have never been across before, and face whatever challenges and trials that we'll face for some good reason. They had to tell that story in such a compelling way to convince people to risk their lives to go do that. And they did it. Like that blew my mind when I was listening to that podcast. And I thought about the importance of stories in everyday life, not just in business. Like if you're trying to sell something, well, sure, you if you're a good storyteller, that's great. But what if you're telling a story about your brother at his wedding, for example? Do you want to fumble over your words, or do you want to tell something that is entertaining and heartfelt and filled with emotion and joy for a special occasion for somebody that you love? And I realized it's like, what? This is something that if I invest in, it can impact all areas of my life. And yeah, there's a lot of resources out there. That's the amazing thing. No matter what your talent is that you want to add to your talent stack, so many resources that are available, whether that's Coursera or Igor, you were talking about YouTube videos for DJing, right?
Yeah.
There is so much out there. It just requires you to be intentional about investing some of your time and attention on that thing. For me, it was storytelling. I think that has had really interesting benefits and impacts in areas outside of my life that are not obvious, right? As a consultant, I don't think people would self-identify as storytellers, but I do. I do.
Yeah.
I love storytelling, man. I think that, the stack that I'm working on right now, this idea of team alignment, the aspect of storytelling would be huge, right? So adding that into the mix, and over these 12 months, giving some intentionality towards becoming a better storyteller and a more effective communicator with those teams, and providing an environment where people want to, do something together, right? For some, that might mean crossing an ocean. For others, it might mean, doing something at the account. But I love that, the storytelling component, and I can see how it very squarely fits into a lot of things that can be very useful.
Yeah, and you've been helpful, Charles, in my career with that idea, that concept of storytelling. When I had a really big presentation deliverable due, this idea of either the hero's journey and how tension comes up and down. Igor, there's even a tie into the DJ piece you were saying before. And the cool thing about building a talent stack is, like, I would say I'm very, very low on the storytelling bell curve. But those 2 or 3 concepts that you gave me at the time really helped elevate this one thing I was working on. And so a talent in the talent stack is also, I'm good at learning new things, or I can take tactical components of this skill and apply it somewhere else that elevates that. And I think this idea of introducing tension and drama into a story, or putting a story around something that previously had no story, it was void of any kind of tension, was really helpful for me. And I think that's a cool, often overlooked part of the talent stack as well, is you don't have to be in the top 80% of these 5 things. You can get just good enough over here to be accretive to what you really care about. So yeah, that's really interesting. Igor, what about you, man?
Well, I want to go back to something that you said, which I think just made me think of something. I think it's really cool that, learning, right? So if somebody comes to you and they're like, hey, I don't really know what to focus on next, right? And, you can talk to them about Ikigai, you can talk to them about talent stack, but this idea of learning how to learn better, how to dive into a subject, how to, take it apart, and how to sort of approach each piece and extract the most learning from it over the shortest period of time. That's a talent in the talent stack that has like geometric dividends that it pays, right? So if you're stuck and you don't know if it's DJing or storytelling or C# or whatever, maybe investing into becoming a better learning. One of the best learning tools for me has been mind mapping, for example, right? So that allows me to learn things in a much more efficient way. And it doesn't have to be mind mapping, but other learning techniques. I think that's a wonderful way to spend time and to like really provide accelerants for you. But yeah, so what's kind of like a non-work related stack that I've been trying out. About a year ago, I developed like a very keen interest in dungeon mastering, for like Dungeons and Dragons, which is a tabletop RPG. And I bought like a little booklet. I watched some videos on YouTube. This is becoming a pattern. I watched some videos on YouTube on how to do it, and I brought it. I've never played it before. I've never dungeon mastered, nor have I participated as a player. Watched some videos, and then I'm an experiential learner, so learning by doing. We the big we had a corporate management retreat, And I just brought like my little set. It was a little red box. I prepared some folders for folks. I had no idea if anybody would be interested when I brought it, by the way. Right. It could have been a very short night for me where I've been like, hey, y'all, do you want to go dungeoneering with me? And, I would have heard crickets and everybody would have gone to play poker or whatever else. And I would have just kind of sat there sad, but y'all got into it. Other people got into it even more. We had a great time. But more than that, dungeon master skills also help transfer in the workplace. So investing this time into just really, for me, fun activity, hopefully it was fun for y'all, helped me, have, how do you progress, a team through a story, right? And how do you provide the right level of challenge at the right time? And how do you maintain interest and make the right encounters and so on? So I would say very random, but learning how to dungeon master was kind of like a out there talent sack sort of deal.
Yeah. And so one interesting piece of inside baseball, this will go into storytelling as well. So our office manager, Brooke, joined the game and she had never played before, right? So picked it up pretty quickly and was the one who actually dealt the killing blow on the final monster, which you had hand painted. So you put the little tokens out and you're tracking positions. And so it's this big sort of nasty looking thing. You hand painted it. And then at the very end, since Brooke killed the monster, she got to keep it. And I remember she was like super excited about that and then took it to her cube and it's there to this day. And that's like a fun story that she has to tell. Right. And so I think this idea also coming back to creating positive experiences, stories, shared experiences with the people around you. That's a huge thing. And that's also a skill that I guess is nested into the Dungeon Master skill as well.
It was super cool. I'm really glad, Brooke approached it with a lot of vigor. And, she moved to a different office. And the Thessal Hydra, that's the monster, the Thessal Hydra that was painstakingly painted by me, it took me probably a good 2 or 3 hours to paint it, made it in her move, right? Which was like shocking to me. I was like, whoa, like it ended up on her shelf at her new office. And it was really cool. It's a great story. And yeah, I enjoyed it. Robert, what's your out there talent stack?
Yeah, so I've been thinking about this as you guys were talking, and I think it has to be this idea around humor or levity that I can apply to tense situations. And so we all know this. If you've been in the workplace for more than 5 minutes, there's people that are abrasive. Your interactions with them are abrasive. There's situations that are ongoing that are just that drama and dysfunction creeps in, and then it's like the boiling the frog analogy. A year later, that's how feuds start, right? And I really try to be intentional about, and I almost feel like I have a gut feel on this too, where a situation is too tense, it's too serious, and I try to bring it completely overcorrected on the other end of the spectrum around humor. Like when you took over facilitator for our weekly meetings, I gave you a yellow card and a red card that you could, hold up when people were talking out of line. And the idea was like to play on, hey, I'm running this show, even though you're like emceeing, like it's like this authoritative thing, right? And so I really try to in work situations bring an air of levity, of humor. I like to joke that I don't even like to talk about work. Like, let's just go have coffee and talk about personal stuff, right? And I think that over time, if you strike the right balance there, it creates a more cohesive, human-centric environment where good things can happen because the people that are around are are happy and moving forward. And I think that's like, if you look at sort of the professional version of gallows humor, right? Like your manual labor, 10 hours a day, dark, damp place. Like all you have at that point is humor, right? And so I think there's sort of a professional analog there, which I've been honing probably since the second grade.
I loved you as a facilitator the very first moment where you started to assign random point values for people's actions during the meeting. And it was something that I was like, man, really only Robert. Right? Like, and it was awesome. Right. And like you always say, like, there's probably somebody out there with an Excel spreadsheet that's keeping track of all the points you've ever assigned. And one day we'll know who the winner is.
We will.
You know, but for you, it was this really great joke. And it became sort of a running gag.
Yeah.
Right. And, you know, on your way out, right? Because you were the outgoing facilitator. I was the incoming facilitator. Like you mentioned, the last thing you did was give me the yellow card and the red card. And I was able to practice humor thanks to you, right? I didn't fall on the points scheme. You gave me the mechanism for humor moving on that I could make my own, right? Which is really generous and brilliant, you know? So you weren't just funny in your own flavor. You helped enable me to be funny and engaging as I took over the role for you. And that was really cool. I just, big kudos, the points. I just remember, I couldn't stop laughing.
Robert, didn't you take over facilitating from me?
Were you the original? Yeah, maybe I did. I think I did.
So what Igor and Robert are not saying, which I will say, I was a terrible facilitator. I was terrible. I was a stickler to the rules. You know, I was trying to educate people on how they should do things according to, you know, the style that we've laid out. And I'm just chuckling over here because such a stark contrast between my facilitation and Robert's, and people just absolutely loved your facilitation. Like that is not a skill that I have tried to improve upon, and yet clearly way valuable. So really nice job on that.
Thanks, guys. One thing I'll say too is I could probably name two people who have the spreadsheet and the winners tabulated. And if I had to bet, they would both have picked the same winner. Like both of their calculations would have been 100% correct. So there you go.
We won't name those people, right?
No.
We'll invite them. We'll invite them to a future episode.
Yeah, that's right.
And just ask them what the score is, and they'll know right away what you're talking about.
They'll know what the score is. Yes,
yeah.
Absolutely. All right, guys. Well, hey, this has been an absolute pleasure. Do you want to close it out for today?
Yeah, let's do it. I think hopefully the takeaway here for those listening is that we define talent stack, and I'm sure Scott Adams did too. We define it pretty broadly. You know, we shared a few examples of what are some different talents, and so I would love to hear from our listeners. What they consider their talent stack, and maybe what's one talent that they want to add to their stack. Because I know the three of us, we're huge fans of lifelong learning. We get joy out of that. And we feel that's important to our careers and our lives. And so I would encourage you to think about your talent stack. And wherever you're listening, find a way to reach out to us and let us know. Add it to a comment or something like that.
Awesome. Well, with that, let's end it. It was great seeing you guys.
Right on. Great to see you.
Have a great week.
Take care.
Bye.
Cheers.
See you.
Bye.